Welcome, everyone. I'm Sue Barber, author, former IT director for a Fortune 500 company, turned executive coach, and this is the Visibility Factor podcast, where we explore how to raise your visibility and play bigger at work and in life. We'll explore key topics and welcome guests that help you shift your thinking about yourself so you can see new possibilities for your leadership. I'm on a mission to create a visibility movement for leaders to show their value and be seen for their true talent. Are you ready to take the next step towards a higher level of visibility for yourself? Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Visibility Factor podcast. This is Sue Barber, your host. I want to talk a little bit about how hybrid work and remote work situations can have an impact on visibility. I get this question quite often from people in the audience when I'm speaking. They want to know how can they be visible when they are working remotely, because they recognize the fact that things have changed a lot in the workplace. People are working remotely now full time. Hybrid work situations now exist where they may not have been as prevalent in the past. And it does have an impact on how much face time you get with senior leaders, how much you can show that you're doing. And you have to think about, if you are out of the office more than you're in the office, how can you make sure that you are still getting the visibility that you need? When you were in the office, the leadership that you were displaying could be observed by other people. And of course, when you're not there, they're not seeing the same things from you. A lot of people were having hallway conversations. They were dropping into someone's office and having a chat. They might have had meetings where they were all together in one room. And that just happened naturally. People could see you and understand what you were doing. But as you know, the workplace is different now. So I'm curious to know if you have thought about your own visibility and how you show that value and impact to your senior leaders. Are you doing something that allows that to happen? Or are there opportunities for you to do more of it? Because visibility just doesn't happen by accident. It requires intentional leadership communication. And it's not about self-promotion, but helping other people understand your thinking, your impact, and the value that you're creating. Think about whether or not you have done enough to be visible. So let's just step back for a moment and think about what it looked like to have face time with senior leaders in an organization prior to doing as much remote and hybrid work. You probably had opportunities to lead meetings. You might have run into someone in the hallway and solved a problem right there. There was no need to set up a meeting for that. You probably had conversations with customers in person. You were coaching employees in person. You might have been collaborating across departments and handling difficult situations, which is always better to do that in person if you can. And those moments over time built confidence in you that people could see. But now everything that you're doing is happening behind a screen. And it's much harder to portray that confidence to people when you are on Zoom or Teams or wherever you may be. So this new way of working behind a screen had a huge impact on how leaders viewed their ability to still be visible to decision makers, because executives don't automatically see how you think, how you influence, how you coach, how you build trust, how you solve complex business problems, and how you deliver results. So what can happen because of that? It means that the value that you're bringing is invisible to other people. And those are the people that are making the strategic decisions about what comes next for you. So I want to paint the picture for you of how important this is to be in front of people, even if you're behind a screen. I don't want you to use that as an excuse in any way. So how can you make sure that you're being intentional and getting in front of decision makers so that they can see the things that you are doing, the things that are important, and you are not invisible to them, that they see that you bring a lot of value and impact. And that comes through intentional, proactive conversations and making sure that you find ways to get in front of those people on a regular basis, whether that is setting up time with them, or if you're in hybrid situations, making sure that you're popping into their office or finding ways to connect with them. I wrote up in the Visibility Factor about remote work during the pandemic situation. I realized that people's visibility was going to be impacted because they weren't in the office anymore, that they had grown so used to that and it was no longer going to be there. And that requires a mindset shift. It means that you have to be deliberate about your time and how you spend it. and make sure that people are understanding what you're doing. And that comes through intentional communication. And that doesn't mean you tell everybody each and everything that you're doing. We want to be able to focus on specific things that are going to move the needle in how they see you. So that might mean helping stakeholders understand priorities, progress, your strategic thinking, your business impact, or how you feel like the business might be impacted by something that the organization's doing, how you collaborate and work with other teams, the lessons learned that you have through projects and programs that you may have been leading. How can you communicate those types of things to people who are the decision makers, who are the influencers in the organization? Because in today's workplace, visibility is no longer just a byproduct of showing up. It's a result of strategically communicating your value and impact. And I can't stress this enough how important it is, because the leaders who adapt to doing things differently, if they're working remotely, if they're working in a hybrid situation, are the ones who are going to shape the future. So let's think about when you were in the office full time, you probably didn't think about being visible on a proactive basis. You might have just automatically received that visibility because you were in proximity with the people who could make those decisions. You were in meetings with them. And now this is going to create a leadership advantage, I think, in many ways. It's going to really highlight the people who are being intentional and focusing on taking the initiative to get in front of the people that they need to meet with or talk to or be seen by. And this will allow them to build trust faster, strengthen the cross-functional relationships that they have, influence beyond their immediate teams, right? There's no limitation to where people are located, so they can meet with whoever, wherever they are, become known for more strategic thinking, and position themselves for new opportunities. All of that's available to you, right? It's available to you if you're in the office, of course, but it's also available to you in a much broader way if you're remote or hybrid. And it all comes down to just really being thoughtful about how you are setting up a plan around this. What I used to do is every year I would just say, who do I need to meet with quarterly, monthly, weekly? Who do I need to meet with, like semi-annually? And I would get all those meetings out on the calendar, and then I'm done. I don't have to think about it. Now, yes, those meetings might have moved periodically, but I made sure that I was intentional about getting those on the calendar, even though at that point in time, everyone was in the office. It didn't mean that those conversations would necessarily happen if you don't take some kind of proactive stance to make it happen. And what we're doing here is just reducing uncertainty, right? We're making a plan, and organizations have confidence in leaders that they understand and who demonstrate the needed skills for the next level, because the future belongs to leaders who don't assume their leadership is being seen, and instead they ensure it's being understood. That all comes through the communication that you're doing in a consistent, intentional way. So let's talk a little bit about how things have evolved over time. Yesterday's workplace had visibility through proximity, like I mentioned earlier. Now it's visibility through intentional communication. Before, you had hallway conversations to take advantage of. Now they're scheduled interactions. In the past, it was informal observation. It just so happened that you were in meetings together. Now it's a deliberate demonstration. How am I demonstrating my value and impact to the people who need to see it? Local reputation. So because you were local, you were in the office, they could see you. Now you have a much bigger reach that you can take advantage of. You can be doing something for your team, for your department, for your function, but you can also be doing something across the entire organization and really increase your reach. And then presence created awareness. Just being present, they had awareness of you, who you were. They saw you walking down the hall. They may have seen you at lunch. In today's workplace, communication is what's creating understanding of who you are and what you're doing. There might be different mediums that people have to use to interpret whether someone's ready for the next step. They might have to have multiple conversations. They might have to demonstrate different skill sets. Even being able to work remotely is an important piece. Managing people remotely is important as well. So think about how you're showing up and what you can do to make sure people see you in the way that you want to be seen. Because when leaders aren't intentional about their thinking, their decisions, and making their impact visible, then that allows other people to have incomplete information. And when you have incomplete information, it creates this perception gap. That perception gap is something that you can solve. It's something that you can fix, because today people are interpreting leadership through screens, sometimes in the office, sometimes not in the office, sometimes never seeing the person ever. And you have to find ways to be intentional and take advantage of what you can do to be seen. So for example, I had a person who transitioned from one company to another during the pandemic. They had to onboard completely remote, had never met any of these people in person, but was very intentional about how they built relationships to make sure that people saw them the way that they wanted to be seen, to make sure that they went above and beyond to build those relationships with quite a few people. So by the time the return to office happened, it was very apparent that they were doing a great job, that they had onboarded well. They were showing up in the way that they wanted to. They got great feedback from the senior leaders, and they became someone who was really counted on for big thinking and influence and demonstrating a lot of confidence. So this can absolutely be done remotely, because it is so important for you to communicate your worth and value to others and take advantage of these opportunities when they're presented to you. And if they're not presented to you, find a way to create them for yourself. Find a way to make sure that people know who you are and what you bring to the organization. Thanks so much for joining today on the Visibility Factor podcast, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much for listening to the Visibility Factor podcast. Remember that visibility starts with small steps that are intentional and consistent each day. Be bold, be visible, be the leader you were meant to be. Find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, which are highlighted in the show notes. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Visibility Factor podcast.